Hi, everyone. My name is Ethan. I'm 25 years old, and I'm from Japan. Just 5 months ago, I couldn't speak a full sentence in English, not even something simple like, "How are you?" without struggling a lot. I was completely lost. But today, I want to share with you how I learned English in just 5 months without expensive classes, without traveling to an English-speaking country, and without wasting time on methods that don't work. And this is not just my story, it's also yours. If you've ever felt stuck, frustrated, or embarrassed because of your English, keep watching. I was exactly where you are. And I promise, if you follow my full journey step by step, you'll know exactly how to improve your English. So let's rewind to the beginning because my journey didn't start with motivation. It started with a huge failure that completely changed my life. The moment that changed everything. I had always wanted to work for a global company. My dream job was to be a software developer at a leading tech firm. I loved coding, I was good at it, and I worked tirelessly to be the best. After years of hard work, my moment finally came. I applied to a major company in the US. I got an email from the recruiter. "Congratulations, you've been selected for an interview." I was beyond excited. I imagined a new life in a new country, a high salary, and working with some of the best minds in the industry. But then, the interview happened. I remember it like it was yesterday. I opened the video call, and there were 3 interviewers, all native English speakers. They started speaking, and it felt like they were on fast forward. I couldn't understand anything they were saying. The first question came, "Ethan, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience in software development?" I panicked. I knew the answer in my head, but the words just didn't come out. I stammered, "Yes, I do software, I code, many projects, good. I'm very good." The silence felt like a knife in my stomach. They asked another question, but again, I couldn't answer. At the end, one of the interviewers smiled and said, "All right, Ethan, thank you for your time." I knew exactly what that meant. I had failed. I didn't get the job, not because I wasn't good enough in my field, but because I couldn't speak English. That day, I realized the power of English. It wasn't just a language. It was the key to my dreams. And I didn't have that key. I felt ashamed, embarrassed, and angry with myself. For years, I had told myself I didn't need English. I thought I could just be great at my job, and that would be enough. But now I saw the truth. Without English, I was invisible. That night, I made a decision. I would learn English, and I would learn it fast. Most people, when they start learning English, do one thing first. They sign up for expensive classes. But I didn't do that. Why? Because I had already tried them before, and they didn't work. A year ago, I paid for an online English course. The teacher had me memorize vocabulary lists, do grammar exercises, and study boring rules. But after 3 months, when I tried to have a conversation, I still couldn't speak. So, I knew that expensive classes weren't the answer. If I wanted to learn English fast, I needed something different. I needed a system that worked in real life. And that's when I created my 5-month method, which I'm going to share with you now, step by step. When I made breakfast, I said, "I am making eggs. I like eggs. They're easy to cook." At first, I felt a little silly, but then I realized this was my private classroom. No one could hear me. No one could judge me. And within just 1 week, my brain started thinking in English. 3, I practiced 5 sentences a day, but with a twist. Every day, I chose 5 sentences from movies or real conversations. But I didn't just read them, I copied them exactly. I repeated them 10 times, trying to match the same emotion, speed, and pronunciation as the native speaker. This helped me fix my accent and sound more natural. By the end of the first 16 days, something changed. I stopped translating in my head. I could say basic sentences without thinking. I felt more confident. But this was just the beginning. After the first 16 days, I started the real practice. Part 2. The real practice begins. After 16 days of fixing my biggest mistake, I was finally ready to take the next step. I could now say basic sentences without thinking, and I felt more confident. But I knew this wasn't enough. I didn't want to just say short sentences. I wanted to have real conversations. I wanted to understand native speakers without translating in my head. I wanted to speak fluently. So, I created a new plan, a plan that would change everything. If you follow this plan, you'll improve faster than you ever thought possible. I realized something important. When I tried to speak English, my brain was slow. I knew the words, but I couldn't put them together quickly. I needed a way to make speaking feel natural. That's when I started using a method I now call the question-answer method. It's simple but powerful. Here's how it works. 1. I ask myself a simple question in English. 2. I answer it immediately without thinking too much. 3. I repeat the process with different answers. For example, I started with an easy question, "What did you do today?" At first, my answer was short, "I worked," but I forced myself to say more. "I worked on my project." Then I added more detail. "I worked on my project for 4 hours." Next, I said, "I worked on my project for 4 hours, then I took a break." Finally, I added, "I worked on my project for 4 hours, then I took a break and had some coffee." Every time I answered, I added more details. This trained my brain to think in English and speak without hesitation. Another example. "What did you eat for breakfast?" First answer, "I ate eggs." Then, "I ate eggs and toast." Next, "I ate eggs, toast, and a banana." Finally, "I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry and I love having a big breakfast." I did this every single day for at least 35 minutes. My speaking speed improved dramatically. My sentences became longer, and I stopped translating in my head. One of my biggest problems was pronunciation. Even when I spoke English, I still sounded like a foreigner. Native speakers understood me, but my accent was strong. So, I used the echo technique. This is the best way to improve pronunciation without a teacher. Here's how it works. 1. I listen to a native speaker from movies, YouTube, or podcasts. 2. I pause the audio after each sentence. 3. I repeat the sentence exactly the same way. Same speed, same tone, same emotion. For example, I took a short clip from a movie where the character said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I paused and repeated, "I don't know what you're talking about." At first, it felt difficult, but after repeating it 10 times, my voice started to sound similar to the native speaker. Another example from a podcast. It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk. I paused and repeated, "It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk." I did this every day for 30 minutes. After 1 month, my pronunciation improved so much that even native speakers started saying, "Wow, your English sounds really natural." I knew vocabulary was important, but I also knew that memorizing word lists doesn't work. So I needed a better method. I used the story method. Here's how it works. 1. I took 5 new words every day. 2. I created a short story using all 5 words. 3. I read the story out loud 10 times. 4. I used the words in my real conversations. For example, let's say the new words are excited, invitation, party, arrive, and surprise. My story was, I was very excited because I received an invitation to a big party. When I arrived at the party, I got a huge surprise. It was my birthday party. I did this every day. After 3 months, I had learned over 1,100 new words without memorizing anything. One of the biggest problems learners face is that they think in their native language first, then translate into English. This makes speaking slow and unnatural. So, I train my brain to think in English. Here's how. 1. I described everything around me in English. For example, when I walked outside, I said in my mind, "The sky is blue. The weather is hot." I see people walking. That man is wearing a red shirt. 2. I asked myself questions and answered in English. For example, what am I doing right now? I'm sitting in a chair, drinking coffee, and writing in my notebook. 3. I wrote my daily journal in English. Every night, I wrote about my day in English. At first, I wrote simple sentences, but after a month, my writing became more natural. After a few weeks, I noticed something amazing. I was no longer translating. English words started coming naturally into my mind. One thing I did was simple but powerful. I made a rule. Every day, I had to speak English for at least 2 hours. No excuses. If I had no one to talk to, I spoke to myself. If I didn't have time, I spoke while doing daily activities, cooking, cleaning, walking. If I felt lazy, I reminded myself, English is my future. I can't quit. My final breakthrough. Now that I had built the habit of listening and repeating, I wanted to push myself further. But I also realized something very important. Just listening and speaking wouldn't be enough if I didn't understand the grammar and structure of English properly. I didn't want to make mistakes that could confuse people. I definitely wanted to sound more natural. I started observing the way native speakers structure their sentences. Every time I heard a sentence, I didn't just repeat it. I asked myself, why is this sentence structured like this? For example, I heard people say, I have been learning English for 5 months. But in school, I had learned that I should say, I am learning English for 5 months. That was my first big realization. The English we learn in school is often different from the English people actually speak. So, I started researching the differences. I learned about tenses in real-life use. When do people use the present perfect tense? Why do they say, I have been learning instead of I am learning? I found that small details like these made a huge difference in sounding natural. I wrote down common sentence structures and tried using them in my daily practice. One of my biggest challenges was prepositions. On the bus, but in the car. Why at night, but in the morning. I kept a small notebook and wrote down confusing prepositions with examples. Whenever I had doubts, I searched for answers online or listened to how native speakers use them. To take it further, I started writing a daily diary in English. Every night, I wrote about my day. At first, my writing was very simple. Today I went to work. I was tired. I ate pizza. It was good, but I wanted to improve, so I asked myself, how do native speakers write? I read blogs, books, and news articles. I noticed how they structured their sentences. Then, I tried to copy that style in my diary. One thing that really accelerated my learning was shadowing. I found videos of native speakers, put on headphones, and repeated every word immediately after them, matching their speed and pronunciation. I did this for at least 20 minutes a day. In just a few weeks, my pronunciation improved dramatically. Another trick that helped me was watching English movies with subtitles. But instead of just watching passively, I paused after every sentence and repeated it. I focused on pronunciation, tone, and rhythm. Slowly, my English started sounding more natural. At this stage, I realized something crucial. English is not just about words and grammar. It's also about confidence. Many people know English. A lot of learners are too afraid to speak. I made a decision. I would no longer fear making mistakes. I began speaking with people in English whenever I had the chance, at work, at the store, or with friends. I spoke even when I wasn't sure about my words. And what surprised me was that people understood me, even if I made small mistakes. They didn't laugh at me. This gave me the confidence to keep going. But then came my biggest challenge, speaking with native English speakers. I was terrified that they wouldn't understand me or that I'd freeze. To overcome this fear, I came up with a strategy. I prepared 10 common conversation topics and practiced them every day. How was your day? What do you do for work? What's your favorite food? I practiced answering these questions fluently and soon I felt ready to take the next step. I joined an online group where people from all over the world practiced English. At first, I was nervous, but soon I realized everyone there was learning just like me. I made friends from different countries, and we practiced together. This didn't just improve my English, it made learning fun. As I entered the final stages of my learning journey, I felt a powerful sense of confidence. I was no longer the same person who had once been rejected for poor English skills. I had transformed myself step by step through consistent effort, practice, and the right mindset. Then one day, I was speaking to myself in the mirror, just like I had done many times before. But this time, something was different. I wasn't hesitating. I wasn't translating in my head. The words were flowing naturally. It felt like magic, but in reality, it was the result of months of hard work. That day, I decided to test my progress. I joined an online meeting where people from different countries discussed various topics. At first, I was nervous, but I reminded myself, I've worked too hard to doubt myself now. Then I spoke. The words came out clearly and confidently. I didn't struggle to find the right words. I understood everything others said without feeling lost. People listened, nodded, and even asked me questions. It was an incredible moment. That day, I knew I had finally achieved fluency. 5 months after starting my journey, I applied for my dream job again. This time, I wasn't the same person who had walked into that interview room months ago, nervous, hesitant, and unsure of my words. No, this time I walked in with confidence. I sat down in front of the interviewer, not as someone who feared English, but as someone who had mastered it. I spoke clearly, answering every question with ease. I wasn't just speaking English, I was owning it. I could see it in their eyes. They were impressed, not just with my language, but with my effort, persistence, and transformation. A few days later, I got the call. I'll never forget that moment. Congratulations, you got the job. For a second, I couldn't believe it. My dream job, the same company that had rejected me before, now wanted me. My starting salary was $5,500 a month, $500 more than I had ever imagined. I just stood there, holding the phone, shaking, tears in my eyes. The first thing I did was call my parents. Mom, Dad, I did it. My mother started crying, and my father, a man who rarely shows emotions, simply said, "We always knew you could." In that moment, I realized I wasn't just doing this for me. I was doing it for them too. With my first salary, I bought my father a beautiful watch, something he had always wanted but never bought for himself. For my mother, I bought a gold necklace, something she had sacrificed so much for. Now it was my turn to give back. When I handed them the gifts, they refused at first, saying, "We don't need anything, son." But I shook my head and said, "No, this is my way of saying thank you. Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." And that was the moment I understood it was all worth it. Every struggle, every late night, every moment of frustration, every time I felt like giving up, it was all worth it. Key lessons from my journey. Now, let me share with you the most important things I learned on my journey that helped me become fluent in English in just a few months. 1. Mindset is everything. Most people fail to learn English because they believe they can't. I used to think the same way, but the moment I changed my mindset, everything shifted. I told myself, English isn't hard. I can learn it like any other skill. I stopped saying, "I'm bad at English," and started saying, "I'm improving every day." If you think you can't do it, you won't. But if you believe you can, you'll find a way. 2. Surround yourself with English. I made English a part of my daily life. I changed my phone's language to English. I watched only English content. I listened to English songs, even if I didn't understand all the lyrics. I followed English-speaking influencers and made English a natural part of my world. Every day, I filled my mind with English. I made it a point to speak and think in English as often as possible. Whenever I looked at an object, I would name it in English. For example, if I saw a car, I would say to myself, "That's a blue car. It's moving fast." Small actions like this helped me naturally expand my vocabulary. 3. Speaking without fear. Many people, including myself, often hesitate to speak in a new language because they're afraid of making mistakes. The fear of not being perfect or being misunderstood can hold you back, and that's something I struggled with at first. I would often think to myself, what if they don't understand me? What if I say the wrong thing? But over time, I came to realize that mistakes are not something to be afraid of. They're part of the learning process. It's impossible to learn anything new without making errors along the way. In fact, mistakes are what help you grow and improve. In the beginning, I was terrified of speaking to anyone in English, even though I knew I had to if I wanted to get better. Every time I had to say something, I would second-guess myself and worry about making a mistake. But eventually, I understood something very important. Native speakers don't care if you make mistakes. They know that learning a language takes time, and they appreciate the effort you put into trying. What's more, they're usually very encouraging, even when you stumble. So, I made a decision. I forced myself to speak, no matter how nervous I felt. At first, I started with small things. I would talk to shopkeepers in English, ask for direction from strangers, and ask simple questions like, "How much does this cost?" Or "Where's the nearest bus stop?" I didn't expect perfection, but I wanted to practice every day. I even started speaking to myself when I was alone, describing what I was doing or talking about the things around me. The more I spoke, the more confident I became. Each conversation, no matter how small, helped me overcome my fear. I slowly realized that the more I spoke, the better I got. By embracing my mistakes and seeing them as opportunities to learn, I finally started to feel comfortable expressing myself in English. 4. Active listening and shadowing. Listening is just as important as speaking. I trained my ears to understand spoken English by listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and conversations. But I didn't just listen passively. I practiced shadowing, listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately, mimicking the pronunciation and rhythm. This not only improved my accent, but also helped me speak more fluently. 5. Expanding vocabulary smartly. At first, I tried memorizing long lists of words, but soon I realized that didn't work. Instead, I focused on learning words in context. I paid attention to phrases rather than individual words. For example, instead of memorizing just happy, I learned phrases like "I feel so happy today" or "that movie made me really happy." Learning words in context made them easier to remember and use naturally. 6. Grammar without books. I didn't spend countless hours buried in grammar books, memorizing rules and exceptions. While some people might find it helpful, I realized early on that it wasn't the most effective way for me to learn. Instead of focusing on theory and endless exercises, I decided to learn grammar naturally by speaking and listening to real English in everyday situations. The key, I had discovered, was to immerse myself in the language and make grammar a part of those experiences. At first, I made a lot of mistakes, but that was part of the process. Each time I made an error, whether in a sentence or in pronunciation, I would take a mental note of it. When someone corrected me, I would pay close attention, listen carefully, and think about why the correction was made. For example, early on, I would say he'd go to school, but when someone corrected me, I realized the right way to say it was he goes to school. It's a small adjustment, but those little corrections added up, and I started to notice my mistakes less frequently. The more I spoke and listened, the more grammar started to make sense. I was able to recognize the patterns naturally, rather than having to memorize abstract rules. I understood that grammar wasn't something to study in isolation. It was something to be used actively in conversations. The best way to learn grammar is by putting it into practice, using it in real, meaningful contexts. Learning this way made grammar feel intuitive, not like a set of rules to memorize, and it helped me speak more naturally. 7. Consistency over perfection. Some people believe they need to learn everything perfectly before speaking. That's a mistake. I didn't wait until I was perfect. I started speaking from day one, even when I only knew a few words. I made a rule. Every day, I would do something in English. Some days I spoke for 10 minutes. Some days I wrote a short paragraph, and other days I listened to a podcast. The key was consistency. Even on days when I felt lazy, I still practiced. You don't need expensive classes, and you don't need a perfect environment. What you need is a strong desire and a commitment to practice every day. Imagine yourself 6 months from now, speaking English fluently and confidently. Think about the opportunities that will come your way. Imagine how proud you will feel of yourself. Start today. Speak, listen, practice, and never give up. Your future self will thank you. This isn't just about learning a language. It's about changing your life. And now I want to say something to you. If I can do it, you could do it too. It doesn't matter where you start or how bad you think your English is. What matters is that you start right now. I know it's tough. I know it seems impossible at times. But trust me, the only thing standing between you and fluency is consistency. Stop doubting yourself. Stop making excuses. Surround yourself with English. Speak, listen, read, write every day. Make mistakes, learn from them, and keep improving. Here's the truth. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. So what will you choose? Choose discipline. Choose growth. Choose success. Your journey to fluency starts now. If this story inspired you, like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll be with you every step of the way. Let's do this together.